Before we get into today's game, I want to talk about the sponsors for my channel. Card Conduit is the best way to sell your unused Magic cards. Whether you've got a box of unsorted bulk, or a complete and alphabetized set, there's a great option for everyone. With a payout averaging 19% better than using any one buy list, and that's after fees are applied, you can rest assured you'll get the best bang for your buck. If you're a skeptic like me, their easy customer service and detailed reports make the whole interaction transparent and safe. And if you use the affiliate link in the description below, or the promo code mtgduskmourn, you'll save 10% off their fees. And 401 Games, Canada's one-stop shop for trading cards, board games, and hobby supplies. Not to mention an easy-to-use and great online buy list. And if you use the promo code mtgduskmourn, your first purchase of MTG sealed and singles will be 5% off. And Dragon Shield, the strongest sleeves for your strongest deck. So be sure to use the code MUDSTA or the affiliate link down below to save 5% on your next order. Before we get into today's game, I just want to give a huge thank you to Wizards of the Coast. They sent me the precons and some sealed product which allowed us to build the decks you're about to see today in advance and release them ahead of time. They invited me to be an ambassador for their Duskmourn program, and it's allowed me to do so much cool stuff. In fact, I was able to inadvertently invite over several other Canadian content creators to my house and film with them. These are individuals who I've either been friends with for a long time, or I've enjoyed their content a lot, or I've really wanted to work with. The list is enormous. These are not the only ones I want to do this with, but these are the ones that we did it with Duskmourn. So please, please, please go check out their channels. Today's game has Commander Mechanic, aka Chris, who I've known for years. It has Davy B. Jones, who does some incredible goblin voices, and she's got a great live stream. And Mr. Bevers, aka Mr. Beavers, aka Mr. B, aka the guy who wears the cheese on his head. He's got a great stream. It often has these kind of like crazy chaos redemption kind of things, and I definitely recommend checking them out. Today's Patreon shoutout goes to Sparky. Thank you, Sparky, for continuing to support me through Patreon. Today's game has me playing the Jolly Balloon Man, keeping Mondrak, Glory Dominus, 3 Planes, Generous Gift, Spirited Companion, and Professional Facebreaker. Chris, aka the Commander Mechanic, is playing the Mindskinner, keeping Blackblade Reforged, Into the Story, Felwar Stone, 3 Islands, and a Scavenger Grounds. Davy B. Jones is playing the Lord of Pain, and she's rocking Into the Fire, Tainted Peak, Descent into Avernus, Thought Vessel, 2 Mountains, and Defiler of Instinct. Last but not least, Mr. Bevers, aka Mr. B, is playing Niko, Light of Hope, and he keeps Plains, Thought Vessel, Illusionist Stratagem, 2 Islands, OG the Exquisite Blade, and Curiosity Crafter. I win the die roll and start us off. I draw and play a Plains and pass turn. Commander Mechanic draws and plays an island and passes. Davy just has an island for turn and she ships it after that. Mr. B's got an island and passes. My turn has a Plains coming in, and I pay 2 for a Spirited Companion, drawing as it enters, and then passing turn. Commander Mechanic draws, plays an island, and casts Felwar Stone. Davy's got a mountain, and pays 2 for a Thought Vessel. Mr. B plays a Mystic Gate, and casts their own Thought Vessel, and passes back to me. I draw, and this happens.
Uh-oh.
And then play my 3rd Plains. I then pay 3 mana for Phyrexian Altar. Commander Mechanic, aka Chris, draws and plays an island, and we then see the Mindskinner coming in. He follows it up with a Soul Ring, and then taps the Soul Ring for Blackblade Reforged, and ships the turn after that. Davy draws, suffering much like I am.
Oh, draw. Hey, you know what? I have the same problem as Andrew.
One color?
Oh, one color?
It's okay because my hand is only one color.
Is it the other color though?
No, we're fine.
I don't want to talk about it.
But is able to cast Descent into Avernus to help fix our colors. She then passes after that. Mr. B's got a Plains for turn, and then casts Niko. As Niko comes in, they make 2 shards, and then he passes turn. I draw and play yet another Plains, being mono-white in this Boros deck. I then cast Mondrak though, and pass turn. Chris the Commander Mechanic draws, and plays an island for turn, and then equips the Mindskinner with the Blackblade Reforged. Going to combat, he swings the Mindskinner at Mr. B, and it can't be blocked, but instead of taking 14, each of Commander Mechanic's opponents mill 14 cards instead. With nothing else, he passes. We each take 2 and then make 2 treasures from the Descent of Avernus on Davy's upkeep, although I get to make 4 treasures actually thanks to Mondrak, and she then draws her turn. She's not thrilled with her hand, casting Into the Fire and bottoms 5 cards and draws 6 new ones. She then plays a command tower for turn. We then see a Soul Ring come out, followed up by a Shadow Spear, and she passes after that. Mr. Bevers draws and plays a Serra Sanctum, and then casts a Curiosity Crafter. He then activates Niko, exiling the Crafter, and his shards become copies of it, and he then goes to combat. He swings a Crafter at Davy, and a Crafter at the Commander Mechanic, and they each take 3. This has Mr. B drawing 4 cards, and he then passes turn, with the Crafter coming back and the shards becoming shards again. My turn has me drawing and playing the Jolly Balloon Man in my main phase. I then cash in my treasure to help cast Professional Facebreaker, and once it's out, activate the Jolly Balloon Man to make 2 copies of it thanks to Mondrak. Going to combat, I swing a Balloon Facebreaker at Davy and a Balloon Facebreaker at Commander Mechanic each, and they both take 1. With Mondrak out and 3 Facebreakers out, I get to make 12 treasure tokens. I then use one of them and sacrifice the 2 copies to the altar to help cast a Welcoming Vampire. I then pass turn, and during my end step, the Commander Mechanic casts Into the Story, drawing 4. Chris draws and plays an island, and then casts a Silent Gravestone. He then follows up with a Cryptic Coat and cloaks his top card, and then follows up with an Azure Beastbinder. Going to combat, the Mindskinner goes at me, but I respond with a generous gift to destroy his commander. He gets a 3/3 elephant instead, and the table gets to dodge milling 15, and with nothing else, he passes. Descent into Avernus ticks up to 4, and we take 4, and I gain 8 treasures while they gain 4 treasures, and Davy then draws for turn. She then plays a swamp for turn, and moves to cast Damnation. With the wipe on the stack, I respond by making Mondrak indestructible by sacrificing treasures and paying mana to it. Everything then gets destroyed, and Davy then plays her commander, the Lord of Pain. She equips the Shadow Spear onto it, and passes after that. Mr. B draws and recasts Niko, which triggers the Lord of Pain, and I take 4, and Davy gains 4 thanks to the Shadow Sphere. Mr. B then plays a command tower for turn, and he casts a Lionheart Glimmer. With nothing else, he passes. I recast the Jolly Balloon Man in my main phase, and Davy deals 3 to Commander Mechanic, and gains 3. And I then cast Osier Tak. I then continue my turn playing at a Loyal Warhound, which gets me only 1 more planes. I then pass, and during my end step, the Commander Mechanic returns his Cryptic Coat to hand during my end step. Chris the Commander Mechanic draws and plays an island. He then recasts the Mindskinner. Davy deals 3 to Mr. B, and once the Mindskinner is out, we then see the Cryptic Coat coming back. He passes after that. Descent into Avernus ticks up to 6, with us all taking 6, and everyone making 6 except for me, who makes 12 treasure tokens. Davy then plays a Sulphurous Springs, and she casts Waltz of Rage and targets the Lord of Pain. But thankfully Mr. Bevers is ready with a Dovin's Veto. Davy still deals 5 to Mr. Bevers from the Lord of the Pain's trigger, and then 2 to me from Mr. B's Dovin's Veto. She also gains 7 life. Once that's all done, she follows it up with Carter, and then goes to combat. She swings her commander at Mr. B, and he responds by activating Niko to make all of his shards into a Lionheart Glimmers, and triple blocks the commander. Davy kills one of them, gaining 5, and we all take 1 from Carter seeing an attacking creature die. In her post-combat main phase, Davy then moves the Shadow Spear onto Carter and passes. Mr. Bevers draws and plays a Plains. He then casts OG the Exquisite Blade. This has him scrying 2 and gaining 2, and he then casts a Soltari Visionary. This gives him an OG trigger, and he flickers the Lionheart Glimmer so it doesn't have to attack. And he then activates Niko to flicker the Visionary and turns all of his shards into Visionaries. Going to combat, he swings 2 of his shards at me and 1 at the Commander Mechanic. We all take our hits since they have Shadow, but there are no enchantments to blow up, so Mr. Bevers just passes. I draw and cast Caretaker's Talent, and then activate the Jolly Balloon Man on the Loyal Warhound. I get to go and find 1 planes for my 6 copies, but I do get to draw a card from the Caretaker's Talent seeing a token coming in. I then cast Valakut Awakening, bottoming my hand and drawing that many +1. I then go to combat and swing everything at Mr. Bevers, and Commander Mechanic responds by casting Keep Watch and draws a bunch of cards. Mr. Bevers then responds with the Teferi's Protection, fogging the damage and phasing out.
At my command tower, and I'll just say, "I see you later."
Okay. So I'm drawing 9 cards.
With nothing else, I pass turn. During my end step, the Commander Mechanic flashes in a Spectral Sailor and then a Dimensional Infiltrator, and then he moves to his turn. Chris draws and plays an island for turn. He then moves the Blackblade Reforged to the Mindskinner, and then casts a Stratascythe and imprints an island. He then also equips the Stratascythe to the Cloaked Creature and goes to combat. He swings everything at me, and the damage is prevented, but we all mill 28 cards. After that, he casts a Solemn Simulacrum, and then an Endless Atlas after going to find an island, and passes turn. Davy's turn has the descent ticking up to 8, and we all take 8, while I gain 16 treasures. She then plays a Swamp for turn, and recasts the Lord of Pain, and then moves the Shadow Spear back onto it, and passes. Mr. B draws, and plays an island as he phases in. He then activates Niko to exile the Soltari Visionary, and animates his shards again. This time around he swings all of his shards at Davy, and she takes 9, and he gets to blow up the descent. With nothing else, he passes. My turn has me casting War Leader's Call in my main phase, but Commander Mechanic responds, activating his Endless Atlas to draw a card, and Davy deals 3 to Mr. Bevers with the Lord of the Pain trigger. The call then resolves, and I move to cast Dawn from my graveyard. But Chris the Commander Mechanic responds again, cracking the Silent Gravestone to exile all graveyards. This has Mr. B responding, flashing back Momentary Blink, and blinking Niko. This has the Lord of the Pain triggering, and Davy deals 2 to me with it, and gains 2 life. I then continue by casting a Goblin Chainwhirler, who enters and deals 1 to each of my opponent's creatures and 1 to each of my opponent's faces, and then deals another 1 thanks to the War Leader's Call. And I activate the Jolly Balloon Man to try and make 6 more. Responding to the targeting, Mr. B casts a Path to Exile and exiles Ogier Tak. This has a Lord of the Pain trigger, deal 1 to me, and Davy gains 1, and I then go and find a mountain. Mr. Bevers also casts an Illusion of Stratagem, flickering OG and Niko, which removes the damage from my first Chainwhirler so they can survive at least the next 2. As Niko re-enters, he gets 2 more shard tokens, and I then make 2 more Chainwhirlers, which deal 2 to each creatures and 4 to each player thanks to the call. I then continue, activating the Caretaker's Talent to make another copy of the Chainwhirler, which deals another damage to each creature and 2 more to each of my opponents. Mr. Bevers' creatures then die despite his best efforts, and I move to combat. I swing all of my Chainwhirler copies at Davy, and the Warhound at Mr. B. No one blocks, with everyone taking the damage, and I then pass turn. Chris the Commander Mechanic draws and casts a Verity Circle, which has Davy dealing 3 to Mr. Bevers. She gains 3, and the Commander Mechanic then continues, casting Mjolnir, which comes into play attached to the Mindskinner. He goes to combat, and Mr. Bever responds with the Rapid Hybridization on the Lord of Pain. This gives Davy a Lord of the Pain trigger, and she puts it on the Commander Mechanic, which will be lethal if it resolves. He responds by countering the Rapid Hybridization, which doesn't save him, but he does get a Spite play, as Davy deals the damage to Mr. Bevers. This has the Commander Mechanic then dying to the trigger, and the turn passes to Davy. Davy draws and plays a Morbid Opportunist, dealing 3 to Mr. Bevers. She passes after that. Mr. Bevers draws and runs the numbers, activating Niko to exile the Lionheart Glimmer. All of his shards become copies of it, and he swings 3 glimmers at Davy and 4 at me. I block 3 of them and die, and Davy blocks 1 of them with the Morbid Opportunist and takes the rest. This has Davy dropping to 3, and Mr. Bevers then passes and gets his Lionheart Glimmer back as his shards become shards again. Davy draws and plays her signature card Cabal Coffers before moving to combat. She swings the Lord of Pain at Mr. Bevers, who doesn't have an instant spell to cast to deal the last bit of damage to her. He dies to combat damage, and Davy takes the game. Game review time. Today's game was awesome. Hopefully Matilda does not yell at me, but if she does, that's fine, because she's 18 and we have to respect our elders. It was a lot of fun. Playing with the creators was great, and having played all of these new Duskmourn commanders was fantastic. We'd actually spent part of the morning building them because I, of course, was not ready when everyone arrived, and Chris the Commander Mechanic and Mr. Bevers helped me build Niko and the Jolly Balloon Man. Both decks performed admirably, I thought, but what blew me away the most was Chris's, the Commander Mechanics, the Mindskinner. Holy cow, that is a budget deck, might I add. That is like $50 US or less, and it was milling like you wouldn't believe. I've played against mill decks, I've seen other mill decks, and I don't think they've performed a fraction of how well it did. That being said, put a giant, terrifying target on his back, because if he swung with like 1 or 2 pieces of equipment, since most of his creature base is unblockable, we were probably going to mill out. The Lord of Pain, it continues to impress me. I thought at first the restriction of only 1 spell per person per turn was going to limit it, but as you saw, as soon as Davy had some kind of life game attached to it, things were just, you couldn't attack. She was gaining so much life. There were actually a ton of damage doublers in the deck that we just didn't even see, and were frankly not even necessary. It was just wild. Niko, the shards at first I thought were kind of like, okay, you just like want to run an Enchantress package that gets a lot of ETBs from enchantments, but the more that we were talking about it in the morning, the more we thought like, let's make this very like punchy Azorius kind of thing. And I'm really glad we did. I think I want to add in more shadow-based creatures because that would be hilarious. There's already that Thalicos wizard. It's a 4-drop. I can't remember what it's from, but basically when it connects, you can steal creatures in there because that just seems like a good time. And it also has like a blink theme because you want to keep blinking Niko so you get more and more tokens. The Jolly Balloon Man, I mean, considering I basically played a mono-white version of it, did super well. The 1/1 balloons really didn't feel that restrictive. You want to run a lot of creatures that have ETB or on attack triggers, so yeah, red does that really well, and white has a lot of great ETBs. I've picked up a few more cards that I want to add to it, which will hopefully be seen in future videos, stuff like Priest of Urabrask and Fanatic of Mogus, which have stronger either like anthem effects or damage effects or ritual effects. So yeah, be sure to check it out. These were great. I'm really glad we got to do this. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.